Hello again. Welcome to another episode of the Uranium Market Minute. Today is Wednesday, January 5th, and this is episode number 58. My name is Justin Hune. I'm your host. I'm the founder and publisher of the Uranium Insider Pro newsletter, the only investing newsletter that focuses solely on uranium and publishes on a regular monthly basis. As always, nothing in this video is intended to be investing advice. I'm not your financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please always do your own due diligence when it comes to investing and always take responsibility for your own choices. Big moves in the uranium market today. Have I mentioned that it's so much more fun doing these videos when things are green? We had a really long slog mid-November through the month of January with only a few small recoveries. And what we're seeing right now is a combination of a beat down market following a 30 to 35% correction over almost 2 months, with a couple of catalysts coming into play. One of those main catalysts is that there are major disruptions happening in Kazakhstan currently. Kazakhstan, as we all know, is the largest producer of uranium in the world, with some of the largest reserves. I think the second largest reserve behind Australia. They have massive uranium reserves, and they are the biggest producer. They produce 40 to 45% of the global annual production. Just huge, absolutely huge, close to 60 million pounds a year. That's been consistent. They've produced that much uranium over the past 5 years, roughly, and they ramped up very quickly in the late 2000s, early 2010s. They are a company, Kazatomprom is a company that has a number of very important kind of high-level JVs. They have the Inkai mine with a JV with Cameco. They have the Katco mine, a JV with Orano, and they have a number of mines, JVs with Uranium One, with CGN, et cetera. They also have big offtakes with China. They are by far the most important, the most reliable producer in the world. And they have been a source of reliable and relatively cheap uranium for global utilities for the past decade. So any interruptions to Kazakhstan has huge, huge market implications. So what's going on in Kazakhstan? Here's what we know now. Basically, over the past 4 or 5 days, there's been significant unrest in this country. This is a Central Asian country, former Soviet republic. The protests started over the removal of a cap on gas prices, but they seem to have metastasized into a full-blown anti-government protests. Government buildings have been burned. The Almaty International Airport has been seized by protesters. The president has basically sacked his entire cabinet, is vowing not to leave no matter what, and is vowing a tough response to the unrest. Yesterday, there was a nation-scale blackout, internet blackout for the entire country, trying to quell these protests. It doesn't seem like it's working so far, but it is difficult to get information. We don't yet know the full implications of this, and nobody does, right? So I think that in the long term, Kazakhstan will obviously continue to produce uranium. I think Kazatomprom will probably be fine. But in the short term, there's a very, very difficult situation to predict short-term outcomes on. So I think what it's really bringing up in terms of uranium supply is global over reliance on a single, not necessarily a single producer, right? Because they have a number of these JVs with a number of companies, private and public, but a single source, essentially, a single jurisdiction, a single geopolitical location for this massive amount of supply. Any type of interruption to such a hugely important supply source has really big implications for the market. And we're seeing some reaction to that today. We're seeing big moves in the spot price. The spot price is up almost $3 today to just over $45 a pound mid-market. We've seen just huge volumes come into the uranium space, and particularly into the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust. So I think that what we're seeing is likely a reaction coming from the nuclear utilities a bit. Perhaps nuclear utilities are dipping into the spot market a bit. We're also seeing investors basically take this event as the catalyst to trigger, let's get back into the market after we've sat out for the past couple of months and let the market correct for 30, 35%. So we'll look at the charts in just a second, but based on these flows, yeah, 45.12 mid-market for the spot price of uranium. I actually tweeted yesterday that I believed the bottom for the spot price was in. Granted, it was not a difficult call, but seems pretty timely. And I do still believe that. I don't think this is going to be a flash in the pan because of the volumes we're seeing coming into the spot vehicle. So yeah, 300,000 pounds that Sput purchased in December, it's highly likely they purchased more than that today. In fact, I believe we will probably see north of $100 million raised today alone in their ATM. And we've got still a few hours left of trading in the day. So I think when we check out the charts, you're going to see how significant these volumes are. We finally saw some reversal in the ETFs, URA and URNM. Yesterday, we saw some inflows. 50,000 shares in URNM means 3.9 million in new mandated buying. That's obviously not that much considering what we're seeing in the markets today. Big volumes coming into URA again today. So we're likely to see that flywheel effect back on in the direction that we prefer. We fully expect these inflows to resume. And in our 40-page newsletter that we released yesterday morning for January 2022, we put out page after page of evidence supporting our investment case. We said something to our subscribers every investor in the uranium space should take to heart given the inherent volatility of uranium shares. So I'm just going to read from our newsletter that we sent out to our members yesterday morning, just a couple of snippets here. Riding a resource bull market is not easy. Emotionally, these young bull markets will test you. All one needs to do is look back at the last uranium bull market that spanned 2004 to 2007. You will notice that over that 4-year period, there were many periodic sharp sell-offs. To those now who've read about the multifold gains experienced over that span are now finding that living it is much more difficult than reading about it. It's very easy to discuss, and to wax poetic about returns of Paladin going from 1 penny to $10 and hearing success stories from investors investing in energy metals going from $1 million market cap to selling for 1.7 billion. Just huge gains in the previous market. But what you don't often hear about is some of these gut-wrenching pullbacks, and we just experienced one. And these sectors just swing so hard in both directions that you really have to know the thesis well. Investors in the uranium sector must accept the unusually high volatility of this sector and acknowledge there's no investment that can historically deliver the kind of triple-digit returns we've experienced last year without the accompanying volatility. We know you've heard these words before from us, but it's extremely important to make this mental adjustment so that you're able to hold positions and not be shaken out. Some pointers coming from a trading psychology perspective that these types of moves are what we expect when the flows come into the space. We can see 10% up moves in a single day. We can see at one point intraday here, Cameco had erased 2/3 of the sell-off that lasted 6 weeks has been made up in 2 days. So it's really important to be able to hold on during these times on the up and the downside, right? So before we just end, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's take a look at the charts. We can see some of these volumes that are just absolutely impressive. Starting off with URA as usual. This looks like, from what I can tell, the 3rd largest volume trading day in URA's history. Of course, we still have 2.5 hours left in the day, so we could see record trading volume for URA. We should see some serious buying of the underlying equities happening now, and we are towards the end of the day, and likely that will spill over into tomorrow with that flywheel coming from the ETFs having to purchase their underlying holdings, issue shares. So just really big moves. URA is up almost 5%. It's sold off a little bit intraday. I'd like to see that creep back up and get closer to the high on the day, closing out at the high on the day. Either way, I'm not complaining. Nice to see this reversal and really nice to see this volume. Sprott Physical Uranium Trust, crushing volume records, absolutely crushing volume records. Huge day, big green candle. The trust is up almost 5% on the day. And the uranium price is up significantly as well. So it's likely with that big move in uranium that maybe they're back towards that trading closer to NAV. But as we can see, the massive volumes here, I do believe that they've raised an incredible amount of money today, and they probably come in pretty heavy-handed into the spot market as well. So very nice to see this and see these volumes. All right, so that's it for today. I think what we're seeing, like I mentioned, is a multi-month, almost 2 months of selling during a period of time where the fundamentals seemed and were very strong, right? And that's the thing with this sector is the fundamentals are, for a long-term investment, are very bullish and they're very solid, and there's something you can really, once you really wrap your head around them and fully appreciate the significance of how these fundamental factors are affecting the markets and will affect the markets, it doesn't mean that everything goes up in a straight line, right? So we have about 7 weeks of mostly selling and about a 30 to 35% correction in the majority of the equities, at least in the ETFs. Some of the equities sold off less, some sold off a bit more, but roughly 30 to 35% since mid-November. We have a new year, right? So anybody who has taken profits or taken tax losses in some positions they may have been down on, those people got washed out, right? Some institutions perhaps took some profits in the last couple of weeks of December. And as I mentioned yesterday, we had the URNM and URA dividends in the last few days of the year, creating this really unexpected and unwanted selling in the sector during a period of low trading volume. So all of that just kind of like washed everybody out. The sector pulled back most stocks right around that 200-day moving average, and now they're exploding higher off of that base. I didn't expect things to move this fast. I did expect to see just a general sideways chops, maybe moving up with that rising 200-day, but I also didn't expect Kazakhstan to go into full-blown riot mode. So this is something that is obviously a volatile situation. We're going to keep on top of it. But this is often what happens in this market, is that you have this stage set for a piece of news. This happens in multiple markets, right? It's not unique to uranium, but when things are trading at intracycle highs, like let's say like they did back in June of 2021, then what happened? We had the Taishan nuclear power plant news come in, the plant in China that had reported a leak. And that was the excuse for profits to be taken after a really good run, right? So the stage was set for some profit taking for a correction, and we got it. We got 2 months of correction at that point. Then at the bottom, the stage is set. Sprott's about to start buying. We don't know what that's going to look like yet. The sector is just corrected. Now everybody's just kind of on the sidelines. The weak money got shaken out. The long-term investors are still holding, or they've allocated some more capital to put into the sector, and everybody's just waiting for the next thing to say, okay, now it's time. What was that? That was Sprott coming in and buying massive amounts of pounds in just, a couple of short weeks with their ATM when they started buying in August of last year. Again, now we have a big washout. We've got a couple of weeks of kind of basing where we're chopping sideways up and down a little bit. We had the ETF selling, washing out sort of the last weak hands. We have sentiment getting down pretty low. Then the new year turns and people are kind of like, okay, we got done with that. We had a good year regardless. All that selling that happened in December wasn't fun, but either way, we still came up on top. We still were up 122% for the year to date for 2021, even with that 30% correction. And we're very happy with that. But so you have the stage set and everybody knows, we know, okay, Sprott's about to take over URNM. Sprott is probably going to announce any day now that they've filed for their New York Stock Exchange listing. We'll probably hear that soon. Of course, that's going to take a number of months to actually solidify, but the application is likely going in soon. We have the expectation that institutions will allocate new money into this sector that has such fantastic fundamentals with this whole year ahead of us now. And so all of these elements are aligning for just something to come in and trigger that. What was that something? Happened to be political unrest in the primary producing country for uranium. There you have it. Now we have just unbelievably huge. We're hearing about block trades happening with Sprott, a single entity taken out north of $60 million positioning in that. Big positions happening into the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust and obviously into URA as well. URNM has pretty big volume today as well, not as much as URA, but still looks like institutional money coming back into the space. That's what we were looking for. And I think this is a really fantastic start to the year. Very pleased to see it. Hopefully you at the very least hung on to positions that were taken before that sell-off that started in November. If you did, you're probably pretty happy now, and those losses are probably pretty small. If you were brave enough and really felt strong enough in the thesis and took our recommendations throughout the month of December to use weakness as an opportunity. Every week I do a weekly watch list, and I'll highlight, this weakness through multiple weeks throughout December. It was like, if the market continues to give us weakness in December, use that opportunity. If you were still allocating into positions, if you're still building positions via multiple tranches, this is your opportunity. And so hopefully if you are a member that you heeded that advice. And if you're not a member, hopefully these market minutes did help you to understand the sector a little bit better, maybe weather the storm a little bit better. And now it looks like we're starting another leg. How far will this go before it corrects? I don't know. We're going to have to see, but this is a great start, and it's nice to see those volumes. All right. We will see you all tomorrow. Actually, you know what? I won't be here tomorrow. I apologize. It's my kid's birthday. So I will see you on Friday. Be well and enjoy the green on the screen. Cheers.